Welcome to the Fearless Floyd Show. We'll begin in 2 minutes.
Oh, cool. There we are.
Trust, part 18, trusts and trusteeships, how trusts were operated and how they operate today.
So what I'm saying is trusts used to work different in the past than how they're working today. So we're going to learn how a trust used to work, or how they created trust and what they used to be like, to compare it to what trusts are today.
All right. Panel 2, and kids, I have not proofread this.
I think you're going to be surprised. I think you're going to be surprised with this one. Who knows, but you could get some major surprises, but you also get some nice ones. Hopefully there isn't too many shocking ones, misspelled words or stuff, because two languages on a computer changes everything sometimes.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's part of the quirkiness of our video.
But it's the wonderful part of it.
Yeah. Just that. Okay. Institutional trusteeship. We are now seeing the change in the nature of trust assets from reality to financial assets. We are also seeing the change in the function of trusteeship from stakeholding to management. This has brought about the change in the identity of trustees. When trusts were first established, the trustees were unpaid amateurs that basically were statesmen who lent their name and honor to a conveyancing dodge. Back then, every well-to-do man was a trustee.
Okay, so when trust first came about in, like 1100, 1200, somewhere around there, it was a necessity. It had to do with the wars, and it had to do with protecting land. So at that time, a trust was mainly for us, putting a landholder's land inside of a trust. And they just gave it to anybody and everybody who had prestige to hold on to their deeds so they could pass them down.
There you go. And a conveyancing Dodge is not a Chrysler, Plymouth, Dodge automotive. No. Just to clarify. All right.
Yeah, I was just wondering, you know, like if somebody was going to think it was a car.
Right, yeah. Okay. Today, the modern trustee is a fee-paid professional. Their business is centered around carrying out trust business. Trusts are now thriving on their expertise in investment management, trust accounting, taxation, regulations, and fiduciary administration. In the United States, these institutional trustees are commonly corporate fiduciaries that are profit-seeking enterprises, and most of them are listed on the New York Stock Exchange. We know them as companies like Wells Fargo Bank or the Northern Trust Company.
Okay, so basically these are the people who are holding on to the irrevocable trust. They're not holding on to revocable trust. They're the ones who are growing the irrevocable trust and growing the assets inside of them for the beneficiaries. So on the trust that they're handling, the grantor can only grant the trust. That's all he can do. From then forward, he can't touch the trust. He can't even, you know, run and operate the trust. And he's set it up for his beneficiaries. So he has to hire a company to come in and manage his trust for him.
There you go. Would you, JP Morgan Chase, they're also a trust as well, right?
Right. There's quite a few of them out there.
Yeah. Those are known as your tier one banks. Jace,
Yeah.
JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and HCBC.
Right. So just keep in
Helpful.
mind, Wells Fargo on the public side is a piece of crap. But if you get on the private side, it's actually a really good name.
Yeah. Yeah. They have actually all of Chase, their private banking's really good too. Today, the corporate fiduciary brings to the business of trust administration not only special skills, but all deep pockets. Under the liability of trust law, the trustee places its substantial capital at risk in the event that the trustee misperforms its duties. Let me change that real quick to their duties. And that the trustee, there we go. This exposure of the trustee's capital informs the modern trust deal, modern.
Yeah.
Modern, okay. This exposure of the trustee's capital informs the modern trust deal, effectively ensuring the beneficiary against many potential harms and forming part of what the settler buys when selecting a corporate fiduciary. The liability risk creates a further incentive for the trustee to perform the trust deal faithfully.
Okay, so believe it or not, you are literally choosing a person to handle your assets and to handle your trust, to invest the money, to make the correct decisions, and to grow your assets inside of your trust. So if they screw up, you guys are going to lose a lot. So you really need to, when you set up these irrevocable trust, you really need to make sure you're understanding who is taking care of your assets and how you want them managed. And that's all set up in the corpus of the trust.
Exactly. The body of the trust.
Body corpus.
Yes. The first trust. Originally, the law of trust made no provision for the compensating trustees for the compensating of trustees because the gentleman trustee serving as a family stakeholder required no pay. Legislation was needed to overcome the presumption against trustee compensation. For Wells Fargo or Northern Trust, the administration of trusts is a business supported by ever more aggressive marketing.
Okay, so way back then, basically the only thing you had as in your trust was your piece of land that you owned. there wasn't a whole lot of assets. There wasn't a whole lot of money. There wasn't a whole lot of anything that you would put in the trust. You basically, you know, made your territory. You had your acres of land and you wanted to protect it. So you put them in the trust and you asked somebody to protect the trust, or to your trustee, the deed of your land, to protect it. So when you died, you made sure that your kids got it, an inheritance.
Right. Parentheses, there you go. All right, moving on to panel 6. Now, when you select a trustee, you better select somebody that's trustworthy, somebody that you can trust absolutely 100%. Institutional trustees serve pursuant to a compensation deal, sometimes negotiated for the particular trust, sometimes based on the bank's published fee schedule, and sometimes dependent on the legislated default law. Another virtue of the corporate fiduciary is longevity. Corporate fiduciaries are institutions of perpetual succession. If we appoint a family member as a trustee, we need to arrange for the consequences of their mortality. We must also designate successor trustees or design a mechanism for identifying potential successors and hope that the persons proposed will agree to serve.
So you guys, what a lot of people, especially people who are well-to-do, will literally hire a fiduciary company, because that means that they have a chance that their account just rolls over and rolls over and rolls over. If we decide to choose a friend or a business partner, and we set him up as our trustee, because in the irrevocable trust, we do need 2 trustees for that trust that are not family members. So we have to be careful who we're going to set up for those accounts, because what we're doing is we're handing them everything. And we don't have, the only say we have in those trusts is what we put in the body corpus of it. So they're the ones that are going to be managing that money. So we have to be very careful with it. Revocable trust, we manage it. Irrevocable, we do not manage it.
Exactly. And as Ann and I were having a private discussion earlier, when it comes to probate, yeah, you better find somebody trustworthy. And it's not always.
Yeah. It's not always what you think it is.
No, yeah. Safeguarding from disempowerment. The trust relationship of necessity puts the beneficiaries of a trust at the peril of the trustee's misbehavior. The changed character of trust assets has brought about a significant change in the way trust law protects beneficiaries. An older scheme devoted to restricting trustees' powers has yielded the surprisingly modern set of rules that trust lawyers call the law of fiduciary administration.
Okay, so look at it. Back then, what if you gave your land deed to your best friend, or to maybe the banker, or maybe to some statesman that you thought was prestige and honest, and he would hold on to it, and he turned around and sold your land underneath, behind your back. So when you died and the children came to recover their land, oh, it wasn't theirs any longer. So back then there was no recourse for what happened. The banks would go through it, and basically they would say, okay, well, the compensation is he has to give you this much money. Well, the kids don't want the money, they want their ancestral land. So it was a big problem back then. So as trusts have grown over the years, and there's been more responsibility, more people are using trust. Trusts are used for more than just land, they're used for everything. The laws have to change. They just cannot leave them the same.
Right. Panel 8. In the first centuries of the trust, when trustees were mostly stakeholders for ancestral land, they were kept tightly in check by being disabled from doing much with trust property. The default law supplied no trustees powers. Trustees had only those powers that the trust instrument expressly granted, which were typically few. since the trustees' jobs was simply to hold and then to convey the remainder to the remainder persons. Let me repeat that kind of tongue twister. The trustees had only those powers that the trust instrument expressly granted, which is the corpus, which were typically few, since the trustees' job was simply to hold and then to convey to the remainder persons, which would be the beneficiaries, correct?
Correct.
Okay. The trustee has no right, unless express power is given, to change the nature of the estate as by converting land into money or money into land.
Correct. Back then, trustees had one job and one job only. You handed them the land title. You told them what was going to happen with it. It was going to be split between your oldest two sons, or it was going to be a dowry for your daughter if you only had a daughter. Whatever it was going to be, they told them what it was. And all they did was hold on to that title until you died. And then once you died, they gave it to whoever was supposed to be receiving it at the end and gave instructions. This is your dowry, or this is the land that you two brothers are going to split. And you have to, share it between yourselves, whatever it was.
Right. Yeah, the world was a different place back then. Didn't have a land recorder.
Nope.
Indeed, the modern trustee still needs to look to the trust instrument or to remedial trustees' powers, legislation, empowerment.
Oh.
Indeed, the modern trustee still needs to look to the trust instrument, the corpus, or to remedial trustees' powers, legislation for empowerment. That would be statutes.
Right, correct.
In the absence of legislation, a trustee has no power whatever by virtue of his office. His only powers are those expressly or impliedly conferred to him upon him by the terms of the trust. And that's a quote. So is there a reference for that quote?
No.
No.
It was in a trust book that I was reading.
Yeah. I was expressing whether or not it was your quote or from an outside source.
No, it was a quote. It was I was, doing some studying on what trusts used to be like and what trusts are today.
Oh.
And it was in an old trust book. It was like in one of those, ones that you can get from Gettysburg or something like that. I forget the, site I downloaded it from, but it was like a trust book from 1781 or some stupid thing. Yeah, it was pretty old. And it was, had all these little quotes in it, telling how trust used to be with all these little pictures, of little stickmen and, farm wheels and stuff.
Right.
It's pretty funny. Yeah. But it had some good information in it.
Yeah, which brings up a good point that I was discussing earlier with one of our trust class students. Just lost my train of thought. I'll get back to it. I totally lost my train of thought. What were you just talking about?
One of the old books.
Oh yeah, the old book. Okay, yeah. As Anne teaches all of you all about the trust operation and trust law is pretty much static across the world. It's different jurisdictions are going to have different laws and stuff like that, but for the most part it's uniform. And as you can tell, Anne still researches about trust, even though she's a facilitator and educator about trust. She still goes outside, she still researches, she still reads, and she still uses other bits and pieces to incorporate into her knowledge, her research, and her experience developing and teaching trust. So by all means, do not for 1 second think that Anne LeFlore's trust instructions are the be all end all, because you're going to continue to learn. This will never, ever, ever stop, because nobody, even Ann, will readily admit that she is not an expert in trusts. She's
They change so fast. That's
exactly.
why you guys, I mean, seriously, you have to understand how they used to work and the modernization of them, how the laws started to incorporate, how they started to grow, and how people are using them today, and how corporations just work in trust, and how everything is trust. So if you don't understand where they came from and a simple trust, then you're not going to even understand how complicated they are today and how they've gotten that way.
Right.
It's an evolution. You have to understand the evolution.
Right. And what you're getting here in this 24-part series, as well as a trust class, is a fundamental understanding of what a trust looks like, how to operate it, et cetera, et cetera. So this is just the bare basics, kids. You're going to continue to learn, educate yourself. You know, of course, I tell everybody, go get you a Black's Law Dictionary, preferably a 6th edition, Burton's Legal Thesaurus, so you can start understanding some of this legalese that they throw out there, corpus, Latin, body, that you're going to encounter, so you actually understand or overstand what you're reading. So that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And you know, going back to the roots of trust, that's digging deep. That's going down that hole. All right, panel 10. A strategy of maximum empowerment displaced the formal law, initially in professionally drafted trust instruments, and then in modern systems of default laws, such as the Uniform Trustee Powers Act. And there you go again. Uniform, what I just mentioned earlier. It's uniform.
Mhm.
Create these certain laws like the Uniform Commercial Code. There's a bunch of uniform codes out there, and they do that for a reason, because it is static across jurisdictions. These statutes empower trustees to engage in every conceivable transaction that might wrest market advantage or enhance the value of trust assets. The purchaser who, quote, has noticed that the trustee is committing a breach of trust in making the transfer, unquote, is unprotected against the beneficiary's claim to recover the trust asset or its proceeds.
So guys, before, if you tried to take a trustee to court, the court had no clue what was even happening. They just ruled on it by what they thought was correct, even if it wasn't correct. And you had no remedy back then. So if your trustee lost your trust, gambled it away, lost the deed to your land, gambled it away, or did whatever he did back then, drank it away, burned it down, whatever happened, and your deed got lost, there was no remedy. The only way the court could give you remedy was to give you money. And that wasn't going to bring your land back. Your land was gone. So back then, all trusts were like land trusts. They were land deeds and land trusts. So basically, as trust grew, started to develop and more people started to use the trust, they had to start making a uniform code that trustees had to follow. And that's where we come in with the equity. And that's where we come in with the clean hands. And that's where we come in with the laws of equity.
Exactly. Panel 11. Statute has now set these disabling rules out of force. Nominee legislation in every American state has overcome the main earmarking requirement, which made, quote, it difficult to use corporate stock as a trust investment, unquote. Trustees are now authorized to register trust holdings of corporate stock in a fashion that conceals the trust interest. Furthermore, the Uniform Fiduciaries Act and the Uniform Commercial Code and the Uniform Trustees Power Act provide that the purchaser is no longer under a duty to inquire into the trustee's transactional authority merely because the purchaser has noticed that the seller is a fiduciary.
So guys, there we go again. This all deals with corporations. A lot of it goes in through corporations. And this is what it's all about. So if we are going to buy corporate stock, We can move the corporate stock into our personal trust under the private side. So it all stays in the private. But before, everybody questioned the transactions of everybody. Once all these codes came in, once all these acts came in, once Congress stepped in and says, okay, hold on, we're starting to get really complicated. We're starting to have a lot of things going on with trust. So think about 1900. In 1900, everything was still handwritten. Everything was still, you know, registered in ledgers and books, and it was a lot easier to take care of. And sometimes ledgers and books, you know, weren't recorded correctly. So it started to make everything a little bit more difficult. And oh my God, I'm so sorry. There's a cat coming across the river. Sorry about that, guys.
Cat coming across the river?
Well, he's coming across the bridge, and he does like to be in the river. We do have cats in our river. So really? I guess they like the chickens, yeah. Hang on really quick. Let me try to get these dogs calmed down.
Yeah, go ahead. We have 17 panels in this, and we are on number 12. And while she's obviously calmed down the dogs, I will read the next panel. Trust and
Sorry about that, guys.
Trust and contract. The contractarian account arises from two fundamental attributes of the trust. First, the trust deal. The deal between the settlor and the trustee that creates the trust is voluntary. No one can be made to accept a trusteeship. Thus, the trust, like the contract, is a consensual judicial.
Yeah, jurisdictional. It's a judicial.
Is it judicial?
Relationship. Yeah, it's like a judicial relationship. Yeah.
Okay, there we go. All right. This feature has been present from the formative epoch, which has shown us that trustees are a species of contracts. Okay. Formative epoch. Define that.
Formative epoch. Not epic, epoch. Epoch. Yeah. Epoch. It's an epoch.
And down here in southern Texas, we call it epoch.
It's an epoch.
Epoch. Formative epoch. Okay.
It means relationship. It's a formal relationship between two people.
Very good. You learned something today. Judicial. Yeah, that's a correct spelling. Judicial. I don't wonder why it's coming up. Sometimes these Microsoft Word does not know everything.
No, it doesn't. Yeah. Okay, so what it's trying to say is, guys, you want to create a trust. You're the grantor, or what we're calling the settlor, and you want to create your trust, and you need to, you know, move all of your things into your trust. So now you need to contract with somebody to be your trustee, and these are when the contracts come in. So the trustee can talk to the grantor, the settlor, and say, oh, well, what are my duties? What do you expect me to do? And they'll sit there and they'll name all these things that they want you to do with this trust. And the guy says, well, you know what? I don't have time to handle a kind of trust like you have. If it was just when you died and all I had to do is, you know, hand it out and distribute it, okay, yeah, I'd do it. But no, I can't do that. So you have the right to refuse to be a trustee. Nobody can force you to be a trustee. Get that? Nobody can force you into a contract with a trust. Believe it or not, they do it all the time. And every contract you sign, they're forcing you into a trust contract. So literally, it's illegal to do it, but they continue to do it. And there is remedies to get out of them now.
There you go. Panel 13. The other contractarian feature is that virtually all trust law is default law rules that the parties can reject. The rules of trust law apply only when the trust instrument does not supply contrary terms. The default character of trust law has become more insistent in modern times. As the trust has lost its connection to the relativity and flexible patterns conveyancing, wow, that was a mouthful, and as trust assets and trust purposes have become more variable. Now I'm going to repeat that. The default character of trust law has become more insistent in modern times, as the trust has lost its connection to the relatively inflexible patterns of conveyancing. So conveying as trust assets and trust purposes have become more variable. These two traits, consensual formation and party autonomy over the terms, are the defining characteristics of the law of contract.
So guys, as we're seeing, we are starting to understand that trusts are becoming more than just a simple instrument that we can use. They're becoming a way of life. They're becoming what all these great corporations set up, all these corporations that run under these, trusts, and they're all sitting in there in the private, and we're all out here in the public. And so if you need something or this corporation's done something to you, you try to sue it in the public, they're so protected in the private. And that's why we've got to get into the private, because everything in the private is protected. And as long as we sit out here in this public sector, we're like sitting ducks, or we're like, on the bird shoot or whatever. Somebody, throws up a fake bird and all the birds, start to scatter. And it's like open bird season and they have the honey guns and stuff like that. They're just going to start shooting us down. So we literally need to get out of this public sector.
Yep, absolutely. Well,
oh, it's duck season. That's what it is. The duck season birds.
Duck season.
Yeah. In duck season, you see them, blow something and all the birds, all the ducks start, flying up in the air. Yeah. And the hunters just start shooting them down, and then the dogs run and grab them. That's what it feels like sometimes being in the public. We're being shot down and grabbed by the dogs.
Absolutely, right? Yeah. As in contract, so in trust, the autonomy of the parties is not wholly unrestrained. There are the obvious public policy prohibitions against legal purposes. There are the obvious public policy prohibitions against trust for illegal purposes. There are the traditional definitional minima. There must be trust property and the beneficiaries capable of enforcing the trust. Furthermore, any branch of the law of gratuitous transfers requires anti-dead hand measures in trust, the rule against perpetuities, and the implicit norm that the trust must be for the benefit of the trust beneficiaries. There are also limits on self-serving exculpation clauses in trust that echo the unconscionability protections in contract. We got some words in on that one.
I told you might be surprised with this one.
Yeah, you got me orally dancing for sure.
So what we're seeing is how trusts are just advancing over the years. It's an evolution. And the more we go, think 10 years ago, would you ever consider writing a trust to protect your assets? No, you would just make a simple will, and whatever. Or maybe somebody would say, oh, you know what? They would propose to your parents. Oh, you know what? Maybe you need a living trust. And, if one of you dies, then it's a protection. And, the other one takes over, and they just screwed them all up back then. I saw the one, my parents had, it was 12 years ago. And I'm just like reading this trust document, this trust indenture. It's in a notebook about that thick, and it has all these legalese and legalize and whatever else you want to call inside of it. When you read through it, it absolutely said nothing, nothing. And so now you get to write your own trust. You get to put in the corpus of your trust, the body of your trust, what you want. You're not restricted to all this, you know, dog Latin language that people don't understand. You can keep it as simple as you want by saying the trustee will perform A, B, C duties, you know, A, B, C, and this is what his jobs are. His protection, or his, you know, he needs to protect this, 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 and this. When I'm gone, the trust dissolves, you know, and here's the, you know, the splitting of the trust. You guys lay it out. You give them the permission of what they get to do. It's like before, it just sits there and nobody really does anything with it because they have no idea what to do with it.
Right. Okay. Let's break down some of these words. Definitional minima. So that would be at a minimum right there.
Yeah, it's the minimum that needs to be done.
Right. Okay, we're going to go down here. It requires anti-dead hand measures in trusts.
So when it says it anti-dead hand measures, that is talking about the old, you know, ways of handling trust. Because when they said dead hands, it means that before, you know, they didn't have anything to do with trust. Now they literally have to have a hands-on when they're working with trust, and they have to be able to, you know, work in honor, and they can't just, you know, like say, oh, got dead hands, I don't need to do anything, I can just sit here and watch the trust fall apart. No, they literally have to have hands-on with the trust now.
Right. Okay, and that's it. All the big words, kids. 15. A key distinction between contract and gift is the standard of intention that governs the transaction. A donative transfer is commonly said to be unilateral. And according, and I'm sorry, there should be no bullet point there. All right, a donative transfer is commonly said to be unilateral, and accordingly, only the donor's intent, not the donee's, is relevant to ascertaining the validity and terms of the transfer. In the world of exchange transaction, by contrast, the intentions of both parties bear on the creation and the meaning of their deal. The private trust is a donative transfer, a means of making a gift.
So basically before, you would be performing a trust. So say that I had something that I wanted to leave and gift to Floyd. So basically I could create a small trust between Floyd and myself. I could say, Floyd, I have, you know, this set of books that would really benefit you when I'm gone. So I want to trust them to you. I'm going to give them to you as a gift when I die. And this will help you to move forward and to take care of the rest of the trust. And here's, you know, here's my gift to you. So this was one way that trust used to be used. And now it's another way where families can gift certain items or certain pieces of land or certain titles from themselves to their children. So these are gifting, trusts now are like gifts. You know, you put your gifts or whatever you're calling them into the trust, and then when you die, it's like you're gifting them to your survivors.
Exactly. Panel 16, trends in contract and trust law. Prominent trends in modern contract law are making it ever easier to account for the trust within the norms of contract. Number one, the routinization, well, you get some words there. The routinization of specific performance. Number two, the growing appreciation of relational contracting. And number three, the spread of good faith requirement. Modern American contract law has undergone a reorientation in its attitude towards specific relief. Accordingly, the remedial tradition of the trust with its ready facility for specific relief no longer distinguishes the trust, importantly, from contract law.
So basically, contract law used to be contract law. Trust was trust law. So now what they're saying is they're mixing them together so that if there is something that happens in the trust and the trustee does something that is not in, equity and good faith, and he steals from the trust, we have remedies now in contract law. We can go after them. Before, beneficiaries couldn't say anything until after the grantor or the settlor died. Now they can literally monitor the trust and make sure that the trustee is acting in good faith.
Exactly. And last but not least, panel 17. Conclusion. We are starting to get a deeper understanding of how trusts were created, what they were used for, and how they have developed and grown over the years. Before, trusts were a necessity to transfer your land from the father down to the son or to the daughter for a dowry, as we discussed earlier. Today, we're using trust. Have trust managers can move other assets into our trust, and we can use your assets from our trust to benefit the trust and earn other assets as we move into our trust. Okay, I'm gonna have to repeat that one. Today, we're using trust. Have trust managers can move other assets into our trusts, and we can use our assets. Okay, that's what confused me. Can use our assets from our trust to benefit the trust and earn other assets as we move into our trust. Okay, that's what got me that one.
As we move them into our trust. Yeah, it should have been as we move them into our trust.
Okay, got that. Before, the remedies for a trustee that mishandled a trust were few. Okay, hang on. Before, the remedies for a trustee that mishandled a trust were few and did not give much relief to the beneficiaries. However, today, there are a lot more remedies in trust law that protect the interest of the beneficiaries.
So see, guys, before we had trust, we put just a piece of land in the trust. That land was that was all that was in the trust. That was the only value of the trust. Today, we can move so many different things into our trust. We can use our trust to actually earn more money. We can use the assets in our trust to work out and actually buy different things from our trust. And once we earn the like interest, whatever we're earning, we earn, more money by selling, whatever we're doing, we move that into our trust. And this is what's growing our trust. So we're not just acting as a placeholder or a place to place something and hold on to it. We're actually working as a business or like a business where we can, move our assets in and out of our trust so that we can grow our trust.
Exactly. Thank you for hanging around after the show. I want to present to you Tailor Made Trust, featuring LeFlore's Trust Series, available at tailormadetrust.com, as well as the fearlessfloydshow.com store. Here are a handful of the available trusts that can be built, custom tailored to your needs and desires. 25 different trusts, plus the DNA trust addendum. And as always, LeFlore's classic trusts and ancillary classes, and also Ann's books on trusts and specialty trust, which I also co-authored. If you'd like to get a class, a book, or have a trust custom built for you, always available at the fearlessfloydshow.com store. And I'll see you in the next show. Thank you for watching and have an awesome day.